This is my 1995 KX125. I picked it up a little while ago. It's just been sitting, but I picked it up for 550 bucks, which is a pretty good deal. The whole bottom end is good, whole transmission's good, everything like that. And it came with most of the parts. I was told it came with everything to put the motor back together. We're gonna see if that's true or not. Usually it's not. Usually there's a few little bolts and whatnot missing. Not a huge deal. Overall, the bike is all right. As you can tell, it's pretty well disassembled. The forks are a little bent. Those can be straightened out with some adjustment. The wheels have been spray painted black, which I'm not a big fan of. Because that either means we have to strip everything off or just clean them up and then maybe just paint them black again. Because usually it's going to be a very time consuming process to get rid of those. Honestly, the wheels are not very, there's no real loose spokes or bent spokes, so I don't see a point in respoking them or even putting new rims on it. Realistically, we'll just clean them up, get that sorted out. It actually came with another set of tires too. These are pretty bald. But overall, here's a little parts pile that came with the bike. So we got radiators, our cylinder, head, little shields, pipe, plastics, and a bunch of bolts. And if we take a look at our cylinder, it's actually not bad at all. It actually still has the Nicosil coating on it. If you look here, you can see the very light silver and then the darker cylinder, or darker gray. That's actually the coating. It is a little rusty and kind of gross, so we'll probably just kind of clean that up a little bit. I don't know if we'll hone it. I don't know if we want to hone the coating, so we might just hit it with some Scotch-Brite and put our new top end in. But other than that, luckily this is in pretty good shape. Hopefully we just have all the hardware here and we can just kind of put it back together, put new piston rings in it, and it'll be good to go. Also started buying a bunch of parts for it. It didn't come with a seat, so luckily I was able to pick up a nice seat for 100 bucks shipped, which is really good because honestly, sometimes the seats are very hard to find, as we learned from the Suzuki build. These are the tires that came with it. Really not bad at all. They're a little old, but you know, they're gonna work. It's for dirt, so not a big deal there. Coming back to the bike, we'll kind of get started with some of the bad here, which, you know, I really don't know what's going on here. We got a switch, and I would assume this is for kill switch, but it really does confuse me as to why they're running a on-off switch instead of just a kill switch on the handlebars. Luckily with the DR handlebars that I actually bought, they came with a, well, I guess they're CR handlebars, but they came with an extra kill switch, so we'll probably reuse that kill switch on this, and get rid of this whole mess going on. Really don't know what they did, but it looks like nothing too crazy is going on. This looks to be the wrong coil maybe as well, but I was told that it did run and did have spark, but we will see. Again, some very sketchy wiring going on here. Not a big fan. We'll have to probably take a look at all of this, but really what we'll do first is just kind of put it all back together, because we can diagnose all these spark issues once the cylinder's back on. So that's kind of the whole overview, and really we can kind of just get started here on cleaning it up. Basically that's going to be our first step in kind of putting it back together. There is a lot of dirt just built up everywhere on this thing. It's clearly been sitting, and judging by the rusty chain, I would imagine that it sat outside for at least some period of its lifetime. But we'll kind of start cleaning it up. That way we can get started, tear into the top end, and get that all back together. Already bought a piston and everything, so hopefully this will be a relatively quick build. And then we'll get to hear this thing run. So I just use the tub of towels when cleaning up these bikes. It usually takes care of most dirt, grease, etc. Usually on things like this adhesive, I've tried Goo Gone in the past and it usually just does not work. Usually the best solution is just to use either lacquer thinner or mineral spirits. It'll kind of melt away the adhesive without either getting into this paint too much, or if this is powder coated, then we're good to go. But usually with a lot of the painted frames, you can use the lacquer thinner without actually going through it and ruining your paint. You just got to be careful. Went ahead and got the piston in, all lubed up with a good amount of assembly lube, and using a Pro X piston, stock bore. Here's our cylinder. It cleaned up pretty decent. Just got it oiled up, so I guess you can't really see, but there's a little decent amount of crosshatch in it. Pretty well ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and put some gaskets on, put the cylinder on, and see if it cranks smooth, and then from there we'll kind of see what kind of spark we have, things like that. But if everything's good to go, we'll just kind of assemble the motor and then see if it starts. Alright, so I figured I'd get our paper towels out of there, but just to show our crank is good, here's our side-to-side play, which is just a little bit, and then our up and down is non-existent. So crank is good. So we'll go ahead and get everything back assembled. Alright, so got the cylinder back on, power valve hooked up, and I mean we can see and hear that this thing already is super smooth. I have a feeling it's going to run pretty good, as long as there's no issues as far as carb goes, anything like that. We still do have to clean up the air box and whatnot because that is very dirty. And we really don't want to suck in any dirt into our freshly built motor, because that's what could have caused it to blow up in the first place. So not too surprisingly, we were missing parts, so I had to improvise temporarily. I will change these out as soon as the actual head stud bolts, or nuts I should say, the head nuts actually come in. This is temporary. I just want to see if the bike runs, and then we'll go from there. We're also going to go ahead and check spark. We'll go ahead and hold this here. As I was saying, I was just going to put the phone here and then go ahead and check. Okay, I don't know if you can see there. We are getting spark. It does look maybe a little weak. So we may have to dig into our whole ignition system here later. But what we could do for now is at least put our spark plug in, and then kind of see what we're feeling from there. I got the spark plug in, and we have some really good compression here. So, oh man, yeah, basically as long as our fueling is good, I have no reason to see why this will not run. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at our fuel tank and everything here. This is pretty jank. I don't know why there's even a fuel filter on a plastic tank, but I may just end up taking all of this off and running a fuel line. That way we don't have to worry about that too much, because honestly this looks like it's going to make our fuel more dirty than it will clean. So alright, so we kind of got this thing outfitted to run. Got the tank on, ran a new fuel line, got the pipe on. I do have some mounting issues, but for now, for testing, this will work. So we're gonna go ahead and turn the fuel on. We'll see if it gets fuel. Okay. Now we're gonna watch for basically any overflow out of the carb. It looks like our bubble stopped. So that should mean the float is working. I don't see any fuel pouring out. So, good sign there. And I think the next step is really just to go ahead and hook up our spark plug, and then we'll see if it pops off. We will not run it for very long. We have no cooling system on, so we don't want to overheat it by any means. And technically we're still supposed to be breaking this piston in, but just to start it, it'll work. And then this kill switch should work. I don't know if it has strong enough spark to actually start though, but we will go ahead and see. All right, so it actually started on the second kick, which is pretty good. Basically, that tells me I'll go ahead and get those head nuts ordered. I'll figure out this whole exhaust situation, get our radiators plumbed up, probably fix this kill switch with something a little more OEM. I'm not a big fan of this. It's always good to just have your kill switch on your thumb control. But yeah, fired right up. Did not want to idle. That could be a multitude of things. One, I have no idea how this thing is jetted, so it could be jetted super rich. It's also on choke, and I have no air filter in it currently. We could try to start it again with no choke and see how that goes, but really I'll just kind of go through all these other things, and I think we're good to go. I think we can call that a success. The bike does run. In the next video, I will probably actually start doing all the cosmetics. I don't know if I'm going to save these plastics. It does have a hole in it from, I'm guessing, where they mounted that kill switch. I do have all new graphics, so we're going to go ahead and see what we're going to do visually, as well as I may or may not put new tires on it, depending if it's going to get ridden yet this season. But yeah, overall, very good success. Runs good, and we'll get back to it in the next video. I was actually looking at the footage, and it seemed like it was not smoking at all, and maybe a little lean because it wasn't really running quite right. And I took a look at the air screw / fuel screw, and it was like 2.5 turns out, which is way more than it should be, which is actually how I suspect this got blown up, because I suspect that it leaned out and might have burnt up the piston, because I didn't get a piston with this bike, and it didn't look like it had any signs of the bike seizing. So it most likely just ran very lean, very hot, melted a piston, and then they just got rid of that and sold it. So I turned this all the way in. We're gonna put it 1.5 turns out instead of 2.5. It should fatten up a little bit, be a little more rich, and then we can go from there. So I've kind of started getting this thing kind of dressed up and ready to run good. Basically, got air filter on, got the actual muffler on, so it's gonna sound better. Got it all tuned up, as well as what we're going to do right now is just get rid of this old kill switch with this, using the CR250 kill switch. Basically just getting rid of this super jank switch here. Basically all I'm doing is I unplugged this end and plugged in this end of the kill switch, and all it does is ground out the spark. Super simple. So all we're going to do is clip this and then basically splice in this wire, and that just goes to a ground that's up here. So that way when I press the button, it kills the power. And that's how all normal dirt bikes are set up. So it'd be much better just having the kill switch on the handlebars rather than some jank switch that I'd have to go find and mess with. So we'll get that all sorted out. I did actually lean it out slightly more because it did seem way too rich still. And before it was way too lean. So now I think we're at a happy medium here. So I got our kill switch all routed up here and coming down and splicing in these new wires, and I even used the old connectors just so I can still quick connect and disconnect this kill switch for any reason I need to swap it if it breaks, etc. Basically at this point I'm just going to kind of do some wire management. I may rewrap this. The bike does run fine. This is just really ugly. So if I can get some sort of solution for this, that would be nice. I may just rewrap it in something a little nicer, because I really just do not like this green duct tape. Really not doing it for me. So surprisingly, this was just black wire under the duct tape, so I guess it was just a style choice, which is interesting, but gladly, there's nothing wrong with it. No wires all exposed, so we'll run with that, reroute it, we'll get all of our plumbing back on, and then really we can start putting back the bike together cosmetically. Starting to get the plastics cleaned up. They're coming out pretty decent. Having to strip the paint off these I will probably have to get new number plates as both of these are cracked pretty good, and I think just with some fresh number plates that are empty, it'll look pretty decent, because this one's just especially super dinged up. And then over here, I'm actually still in the process of paint stripping this one. We can go ahead and unwrap this. This paint stripper's been sitting for a while. The bike was painted gray, or at least these fairings were painted gray for some reason. But the paint stripper's doing pretty good work, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of scrape this off and then see where it is at that point. And then I'll probably razor blade off the rest, and it should be looking pretty good again. And I'm using the Clean Strip Aircraft paint remover. It works pretty well. It is very, very nasty stuff, so I do recommend gloves and like some ventilation so you don't get super high. But yeah, I mean, it really just kind of peels this stuff off. You can see just kind of comes off real nice here. Alright, so this turned out pretty decent. Basically, I just wiped off everything that the stripper took off. Basically, I just spread that on pretty thick, wrap it in plastic wrap, and let it sit for like 45 minutes. And then it'll pretty much take most of the paint off. And then after that, I just use a razor blade flat to scrape any leftover paint. It's like not perfect. And then our graphic should hopefully cover this hole that was cut in it. And if I wanted to, I could go ahead and wet sand and polish these, but with graphics going over them, I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to apply graphics. This is the first time I'm ever doing it, so just gonna use some soap, water, heat gun. I already tried this one just dry and with no heat, and obviously there's a little bubbling. So I'm just gonna use heat, redo it, and hopefully it sticks down a little better. Looks good, you know. Well, for my first time actually applying graphics, it turned out pretty well. Gotta say I'm pretty satisfied with that. The key is definitely using a heat gun. Once you warm this stuff up, it just kind of forms to all your plastic, really lays on there nicely. If you don't have heat, there's no way it's gonna look good. But yeah, overall we were able to get these on. Our little hole disappeared where they had put the switch. You know, it was up here. Now it's, you know, you literally cannot tell that it was there. I also got the wrap on the airbox as well as the swing arm. So I did get a new chain for this thing because this one is rusty and some of the links are actually seized. So we'll go ahead and swap that. I might mess with the foot pegs a little bit, maybe just clean the shifter up a little bit. But other than that, it's gonna get a new chain. We're gonna put on our cooling system, put on our plastics, and it should be good to go. So I hooked up our radiators and it looks like we have a small issue. It does seem that maybe this one is cracked. Because it's not coming from our connection down here, and there's no fluid coming out from like the midsection or coming down from the top. And if we actually wipe here, which is above the connection, we can see there's a new stream of coolant. So that means it is cracked somewhere, probably here. I was wondering if that was going to be a problem because this radiator did look a little tweaked compared to the other one. So looks like we'll need a new left radiator, or we could potentially just get a whole new pair. We will see. New radiators came in the mail, so I went ahead and swapped over the mounting bushings. Now we should have everything good to go. I'll put them back on the bike, fill them up, and we should be pretty well done. Went ahead and got them installed. They're all plumbed up. Got the coolant in, and it's pretty much ready to bleed the system. Then we'll heat cycle the motor, and it should be ready to ride. So here it is, the 1995 KX125. Got all of our plastics, graphics on, new radiators, got the coolant all bled. Everything is good to go. So we'll give it a quick little startup here. So yeah, I think that pretty well wraps up the KX125 kind of series. Might upload some riding footage some other time, but as far as the rebuild goes, it is complete.